All right, lesson 1.5 is using a problem-solving plan. Much like your science classes, you know how you do an experience, right? You form a experiment. You form a hypothesis, and then you go through a certain number of steps in order to test whether it's going to work, right? So that's the scientific method. In math, you can create a plan in order to use the steps that you know to solve a problem. Word problem specifically is what this one's going to be talking about. So let's look at this key concept. Make sure you have this in your journal. When you have a problem-solving plan, you need to go through these 4 steps. And if you just want to do like shorthand and just write the bold words, that's fine. So step 1, you need to read and understand the problem. If you don't understand it the first time you read it, please reread it again. And then identify what you know and what you need to find out. You'll see when I start reading a word problem, the minute I hear any kind of math number, any kind of equation in there, I immediately write it down and label it so that I know what I'm talking about. Step 2, make a plan. Decide on how you're going to solve it. What formula am I going to use? What am I trying to find? Am I looking for the variable, etc.? Step 3, solve it. So carry out your plan. Try, if the first way you try and do it doesn't work out, there's more than one way to solve a problem often in math. And then step 4, look back. This is where you check your work. You take your answer, plug it into the original equation, make sure you get the right answer. Okay? So let's look at example 1. Read a problem and make a plan. So we have a word problem here. You run in a city. Ooh, I'm going to take a picture of the city. Here. You run in a city. Short blocks are north-south and are 0.01 mile long. So 0.01 mile, and this is the short blocks. Long blocks are east to west and are 0.15 miles long. You will run 2 blocks east, a number of short blocks south, 2 long blocks west, and back to your start. You want to run 2 miles at the rate of 7 miles per hour. How many short blocks must you run? So the first thing, what do we know about this? What do we know about this question? I already wrote some of it.
0 mile.
We know that the short blocks are 0.1 miles.
Yes.
We know that the long blocks are 0.15 miles. We know that short blocks are those north-south or east-west. They're north-south, right? So whenever I'm on the picture, when I'm going up and down, those are my short blocks. And we know the long blocks are east-west. Okay? What else do we know? It tells us how many blocks we're going to run, doesn't it? Of a bunch of it. It says we're going to run 2 blocks east, some short blocks south, 2 blocks west, and back to our start. It also tells us our total, right? How many miles do we want to run all together?
7.
You want to run how many miles? 2 miles total. And what you're reading is the 7 miles per hour. And how fast? We're going to want to go 7 miles per hour. That's what you were reading, the 7 miles per hour. So the question they're asking is how many short blocks do we need to run? So how many long blocks did it say we're going to run for sure?
2.
Keep reading.
Long block plus back to the start.
Says 2 blocks east and 2 blocks west. Those are all the long blocks, right? So I know I'm going to run how many long blocks? 4. Because I'm going to go 2 east and 2 west. Going one way and then coming back probably. So we know how many long blocks we're going to run, we know how far we want to go, we know how fast we want to go, and we know how long each block is. All right, so now we need to make a plan. All right, that's step 2 of this problem-solving plan. So now let's go look at example 2, and this is going to help us make our plan. So, first of all, we know how long a short block is, right? Tell me how long a short block is. 0.1. And then I'm just going to say S for short block, right? So each short block I run is 0.1, so that's multiply, right? Okay, and then I'm going to add that to my long block. How long is my long block? 0.15. Do we already know how many long blocks we want to go? Yeah, how many?
4.
So I'm going to multiply that times 4. And do we know how far we are going to run?
Yeah.
How far?
7 miles.
That's how fast. How
2
far?
miles.
2 miles. So do I have an equation with one variable that I can now solve?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a funky looking variable because I wrote it weird, but my S's can look like 2's, so I tried to. All right, so now let's solve this. So I have 0.1 S plus, what is 0.15 times 4?
I don't have a calculator.
None of y'all have a calculator? Everybody's just staring at me. Correct. So now I need to move the 0.6 to the other side. You should be writing this in your journals. So I have 0.1 S left over equals, what's 2 minus 0.6? 1.4?
Yeah.
Now to get the S by itself, I divide by 0.1. So then I have 1.4 divided by 0.1, which gives me 14. So S stands for what again?
14.
No, but S stands for what? Short blocks. So I'm going to run 14 short blocks. And then how many long blocks am I running?
2.
4.
4. 4 long blocks, 14 short blocks. Good. We've answered the question. Any questions on how we created our mathematical equation and solved it? This is stuff you're going to have to do. So if you have a question, now's a good time to ask. Good? All right. Let's look at the key concept on page 30. All right, first of all, somebody tell me, what is the definition of a formula?
A formula is an equation that relates to or more quantities. You may find it helpful to use formula in problem solving.
Yes, a formula is just something that relates to or more quantities. And it's going to have variables in it, okay? And the variables represent whatever you're trying to solve for usually. So here are some formulas that you will see many times in your life. These are 4 formulas you could use forever, regardless of what career you go in. This is just living formulas. Temperature, C equals 5/9 F minus 32. What does C stand for?
Fahrenheit.
C stand for
Degrees Celsius.
Celsius.
Ah.
F stands for
Oh, yeah.
Fahrenheit.
Fahrenheit. So this is how you convert Fahrenheit to Celsius or Celsius to Fahrenheit. If you know what Fahrenheit is, you plug that in where the F is and solve, and you'll get your Celsius. If you know what the Celsius is, you plug that in and solve for F, and you'll know what Fahrenheit is. Simple interest, this is dealing with money, okay? Interest equals principal rate times time. Okay, so simple interest is how you can calculate how much interest you're going to be charged when you borrow money or if you loan money and are charging interest. Okay? Distance traveled. This is good when you're planning vacations and going to drive places. Distance is rate times time. Tells you the distance you've traveled. And profit is income minus expenses. This is probably one of the most important formulas you'll learn as you get into an adult, making sure your income is always bigger than your expenses so you don't go in the hole. Okay, so make sure you put these formulas in your journal. You will use them over and over and over again. Okay? So let's look at example 3. If you haven't written those formulas, just leave a space and you can come back to it. You're making a leather book cover. You need a rectangular piece of leather as shown. Find the cost of the piece of leather if leather costs 25 cents per square inch. Let me take a picture. All right, so we have our little blue book and we're covering it with leather, which you can see the brown part, that's your leather. And do we know the formula for the area of a rectangle? If you don't know it off the top of your head, maybe look behind my head. Area of a rectangle is area equals
1x double.
length times width,
Oh, okay.
which is xw up there. Oh, that's L times W, that's what that is up there. I just don't put the time symbol, I write it next to each other. So the area, to find the area of the rectangle, I'm going to do length times width. Do I know my length? 18. Do I know the width? 11. So the area of this leather is 18 times 11. Well, what is 18 times 11?
18 times 11 equals 198.
Right, 198 square inches, or inches squared. So now we know that the cost is what per square inch? It told us right at the beginning.
25 cents.
25 cents per square inch. So we're going to take 198 times 0.25 and get what?
49.5.
So make that money.
50.
$49.50. So the cost of the leather to cover this book is $49.50. So in this case, there was a multiple choice question, so you would choose B.
Wait, so what do you do with the...
That's it. That's your examples. So this is lesson 1.5. You're doing numbers 8 through 20. That's it.